I wanted to make a quick tutorial on what I found was a common issue with LG Smart TVs. Samsung's, I've seen it, and I suspect other brands, same thing happens there. And it's when you have no signal on any of your HDMI ports. The TV otherwise seems to work fine, but you've got no signal on your HDMI. Power the TV on and the screen seems to work just fine. We're able to use the menu without a problem. We're able to use the input function without a problem. It's just a matter of getting signal to come through when you're using HDMI. Just to check, I'm using the TV input and I can hear that the sound is working fine. But here I'm going to try to use an HDMI port. And it's showing me HDMI 4. It knows that I'm plugged in, so it's receiving that signal. But when I switch over to HDMI, it takes a second and tries to grab it, but I see nothing. So we're going to start off by flipping the TV over carefully, put it on something so you don't scratch it. There should be screws all the way around. Some televisions have little arrows to let you know which ones. Be mindful of some that could be hidden. Take all those screws out and then take this back panel off. On some televisions like this one, you can't remove the power cord from the outside, so you're going to have to remove that separately. Once you do that, you can move this back panel out of the way. Just a quick overview of what a television looks like when it's opened up. On the right side here, you see the power board. We know this because your power cord plugs into it. But this is where your voltage is regulated and distributed to different parts of the television. Sometimes, if you have a bad power board, you'll experience a TV that looks like it turns on, but there's just a black screen. Next, towards the middle up top there behind that plate are your T-Con boards or T-Con board, and that's what sends the logic to your screen. If there's issues with that, sometimes you'll have a screen that looks like this. And here on the left-hand side is our main board. That's where your video gets processed and sent out towards those T-Con boards. And this is where our issue for this particular fix is going to reside. Normally, if I could narrow down an issue to one of these boards, I'll just replace the board itself. Sometimes they're 50 bucks and that takes care of the issue. This particular board, however, is unavailable. So I'm going to try an old hack and see if I can make it work. This IC chip that you see here controls all the HDMI ports. And there's a good chance that one of the pins has lost its contact with that board. There's a few reasons why that happens. Sometimes just bad design, cold solder, sometimes where you place your television if it's not getting enough air circulation, causing it to overheat enough so that it loses the connection. What we're going to try is to warm up the entire chip so that the solder reflows and hopefully makes that broken connection. I'm going to use a heat gun for this. You can actually take this entire board off and put it in an oven. I've done that with an Xbox once before, but I know that the chip is the issue, so I'm just going to kind of direct that heat right onto it. Obviously take care with the parts that are around that chip. Like you'll see this plastic here is going to start to melt a little bit. But if we want to get that chip hot enough to where that solder gets warm enough to melt and reflow, as soon as I pull that heat off, I'm going to take a screwdriver and put very light pressure. Very important that it's straight vertically downward, and just to give myself a little extra pressure towards that board. The goal here is to make sure that every one of these little pins has a solid connection with that board. And now it's time to test. Remember that with these parts being exposed and you being powered up, you risk shock. So don't touch anything on that power board, don't let anything fall on it. I've plugged my source into a different HDMI port just to make sure that when I turn the television on, it knows to jump from that HDMI 4 to that new connection. That'll let me know that the chip is working in that regard. Now that the television is powered up, we should see that signal showing up as a different HDMI connection, which it does. I'm going to select that, and hopefully what I have here on my tiny screen will jump over to my big monitor. Perfect, easy fix. But I'm going to consider this one of those lucky, nothing to lose type repairs. If you're in a similar situation, still might be worth a try. It's definitely better than throwing your television away. Thanks for watching. Of course, subscribe and help me grow my channel.